on my list of valuable things. Alright, so let's take a look at this Final Fantasy XIII event. Actually, let's go to the Mega Thread first and see if there's anything fun happening here. It does not look like there is. Oh, Noel can now use Sharpshooter 5. That's cool. Noel and Sarah and Hope and Saz all get Legend Dives. How's your Legend Dive? Black 9. That's good. Fizz 9. That's good. Hope Holy 9 is fine. It's fine for him. Just don't like it as much as this. This is really flexible. And I'm guessing that they gave Hope Holy instead of Black because he's also a summoner. And the plus Black damage would be bad for him. So stick to Holy with Hope if you're going to Legend Dive him. Support damage. This is the sour mark on support. Support or Legend Dives. Which makes me want to go and look at something. Does Ferris also suffer from that? Yes, I have. I have Sapphire Shard at R2 now, and I'll probably be honing it to R3 when it becomes necessary. I just haven't used it outside of the Geo CM, really. Physical bow damage? That's even worse. Ugh, she gets shafted hard. Alright. Whatever, I guess their supports are not going to do all that much damage, but Ferris actually can deal a lot of damage. It's just a black mark. That's all. On a lot of support Legend Dives is that they have this near useless couple squares. Hey, Maury. Thank you very much for the follow. When you just would hope it'd be for something more useful, when these two spots are generally the bright spot on other Legend Dives. They're what you look for. Sarah's got some great Legend Materia. Wait a second. Is that really her second Legend Materia? I thought she had good Legend Materia. I mean, her LMR is good. I know that. Double cast ice, but I didn't know her LM2 was one of these shitty magic stackers. Well, that sucks. The event preview text layer was over the follower alert? You're correct. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Streamlabs should always be at the top. I'll have to rearrange that scene sometime. Okay, well, next. Noel, small physical. Well, sure. Start battle with haste and instacast 3. That's really good. And his LMR is medium physical damage up when equipping swords. This is actually good. I usually don't like these kind of Legend Materias because they require you to use a certain weapon type, but it's not exactly a tough request to fulfill when the equipment in question is swords. So that's nice. Nope, I'm all over the place. Let's see, we got Hope, small holy damage up, medium chance to dual cast holy damage abilities. That's a 35%er since it's an LM2. Very nice. What's your Legend Materia? Start battle with Unholy? That's fine. So Hope's got some good Legend Materia. Saz, don't care. Medium duration increase for buffs cast by self. This is the LM2. That's extremely good for Saz. And you'll find out when we take a look at the banners, but that's a 40% duration increase for buffs. Saz is one of the better buffers in the game as of this event, and he wasn't bad at all before this, but he definitely needed his USB to get put onto the same tier as a lot of the others. The problem that I'm gonna go into on these banners is that they appear good to us now just because of where we are in the power creep versus where Japan is in the power creep, but these banners are very plain otherwise. And one good indicator of that would be the fact that Saz's USB, which is one of the top relics on the second banner, is party magic, defense, and resistance plus 30%. Haste and status blink to the entire party. This is great. This is really, really good. But there's an issue there in the fact that if you remove magic here and put attack instead, all of a sudden you have Red 13's USB. It is exactly the same other than that. Exactly. TRM points it out. And his USB comes out next week. So think about that time disparity between us getting the physical version of this, which is excellent, versus the magic version of this, which is excellent, 4.5 months from now. It's, this is something that's powerful for our version of the power creep. But when it gets to there, it's just, this is a good support USB. Because there's a ton of other stuff that's also really good for support USBs and support soul breaks and whatever. So, that's one of the dangers that you run into by looking too far ahead, is that you start thinking that the shit in front of you is so awesome when it's not. It's just good. It's fine. And you start holding back on making pulls now in order to look forward to the future. A lot of people get caught up in that trap. It's the hoarder's dilemma. Just don't do that. A lot of the stuff that we're seeing right now on banners is actually quite good and more powerful than the stuff around it. And Red 13's is one of those USBs. His USB is incredibly good. But that's because we're getting it now. If we were to be getting it 4.5 months from now, it would be just, oh, this is a really good USB, instead of, holy shit. So just, that's all I'm warning, is don't fall into that trap when we take a look at these. I'm going to start doing these more often. I've decided to start doing a weekly look at Japan's current banners, just as a kind of a deep look into the future. It just comes with a lot of footnotes, you know, grain of salt and whatnot. Hey, Strider. Alright, so let's go over to the relic draw thread. We'll start off on banner 1, which is clearly the better of the two. First up, we have Noel's USB, which is 0 cast time, always good. 10 single target ice, like the fact that it's elemental instead of his old non-elemental. So this is already a pretty high damage Super Soul Break. Very potent. And moving on, we got ranged, which is, I don't know how, like, a lot of the stuff that he uses works. I guess he's a sharpshooter now, too, which gives him an ice ability, which is perfect to go along with this. So Noel's probably a back row character as of this event, which is nice. So you're using this, and you get the Imperil Ice, and then you start using Icicle Shot with him to take advantage of it. Enemy attack magic and resistance minus 50%. So this is a very, very similar USB to Ferris, and we know how much we like Ferris's. Ferris is a better character, but I do believe that as of this event, I know it's weird to wrap your head around that, but it's happened to other characters before, with like Cyan and Kamari and stuff like that. Well, Kamari not to this extent, but Cyan definitely, is that they get this USB that combos well with stuff that they're capable of doing, and they actually turn into legitimately good characters. That's what we got here. It deviates a little bit from Ferris's, where it loses, or hers is attack magic and mine minus 50%, while his is attack magic and resistance minus 50%. And I think that's your trade-off. And a little bit of power creep added in there, because Ferris's USB is coming soon. And that flows into a lot of how I talked about Saz's USB on the second banner. That this is very similar to something that we're going to be getting in a few weeks. Where this is 4.5 months into the future. So keep that in mind. It's just, I guess, it kind of accentuates how good Ferris's USB is when it comes out. The differences are the 0 cast time, which is, as I said, excellent. It's an excellent benefit. And you lose mine and gain resistance. I don't know. I think I prefer mine, personally. I don't think I'm using Noel on a mage team, so the resistance isn't that useful. It's really just there for stacking purposes. Just like Vaughn and his USB is attack and resistance minus 50%. It's like that. Well, yeah, I mean, I meant just imperil component for your his or her element. It's the same. So that's really good. But it's par for the course. It's on power level with the current state of Japan. Next up, we have Raging Arc, Sarah. USB Etro Arrow, 10 single target, Ice non-elemental, okay, and Ice, sure. Self-High Quick Cast 1 and X-Mode Farce here. I haven't heard that word in a while. War Armor 40k. This is Lightning's USB. And you're going to see this as it occurs later on in the banner. Sarah just becomes a copy of her sister, except magical and ice. Sub out everything, and there you go. Which, again, same thing. We already have Lightning's USB in global. This is just an ice version of it. Next up, we have Snow and his USB. 10 single target, ice, physical, party, ice radiant shields. I'll go into that in a second. Self-revenge counter. I'll go to that in a second. Well, ice radiant shield is a radiant shields, just like any others that we get. And it's 75% damage return instead of 100%. There's the first big difference. But it gains a benefit for having that 25% reduced damage, and that is the fact that it is ice damage returned instead of non-elemental, like the current radiant shields that we see. So if you're fighting a boss that has an ice vulnerability, then he'll take extra damage from the ice radiant shield. It's pretty neat. It's not the first time we've seen this mechanic. The first was Kamari, actually, with his USB. There's a water radiant shield. And we got that, well, we didn't get it. Japan got it a few months ago on a little strange water record mission banner, which we may or may not get. Unfortunately, we'll see. That's something that hasn't hit global yet, and I'm not going to make any judgments on it until it does. We should have gotten something translated for record missions in the last batch of translation stuff last week. We did not. So that's what makes me a little anxious and apprehensive about, making a call on whether or not we'll get that Kamari Yuffie banner. Yuffie gets her BSB2 on that banner. It's not that great, so it's not... I'm not lamenting the fact that we may not get it, but it's just, I guess, more straw thrown on the pile. What's Revenge Counter? Counters physical and black attacks from enemy with 2 times single target ice non-elemental physical. How strong is that? Karakuri, thank you for the follow. 15 seconds. Revenge counter is a 2.0 attack. Monk. Ice. And all physical and black attacks. How do I feel about that? How do I feel about that? 10 single attacks, Ice Radiant Shield, grants revenge counter. This Snow still doesn't have any way to deal ice damage, does he? Other than revenge counter now. Yeah. But if he's granting Ice Radiant Shield to the party and getting revenge counter, I guess that's acceptable. And with a 15-second duration on revenge counter, I guess you're fine with life siphoning it out. So you use it, and then you spend 3 turns life siphoning again, then use it again. I guess it's fine. It just doesn't seem like it's got much oomph. Oh yeah, I mean, he's got Burst Soul Breaks, but that's different. That's Burst Soul Breaks don't come free. You have to use Soul Break Gauge to use them. Thank you. Thank you very much for the follow, Insurgent. I'm looking at the perspective of, is this worth using by itself? And if it's not worth using by itself, then it's not terribly desirable. And if you have to entrust him, this doesn't combo with anything that he does. Right? It's BSB2. Does it have a Sentinel command? That would help. That would help if his BSB2 has a Sentinel command. I still don't think that I'll be able to give it an endorsement. Oathsworn a spot. No, that's the wrong one. Defense 50% and 5 attacks of exploiting elemental weakness. He has no Sentinel in the best things that he does. I don't know. I can't endorse this. I'm not a big fan. So I really like both of these. They're fine. They're just good. Because there's so many soul breaks like this at this point. It's not, you know, the movie of the week anymore. And this one is actually still pretty good. Because even at this point, I think Ferris is the only one that has something of this severity when it comes to debuffing. And that's pleasant company to be in. Next up, we have Izanami with Sarah, her BSB2, 10 single target random ice, non-elemental, and peril ice. And like I said, just like lightning, her burst mode is 4 times single target, short cast time, 2 times AoE, short cast time. Exactly like lightning, except magical and ice. And that's fine. It's basic, but good. So, I mean, we are seeing a trend now. Ice, 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 ice. And does it stop here? Yes, it does. We have Noel's geriatric Meteor Javelin, which, no thanks. Not at this point in the game. If you're using Noel at this point, it's not for this. You're using Noel because you got this, and you're using him because he's good against ice now. I suppose he would be still worth something against non-elemental because of the 0 cast time and the debuff, but the thing is, you're not entrusting him, okay? I can't think of many situations where this would ever be useful for him anymore at this point. So this is kind of a dead draw. Noel's BSB2. I went over it a little bit when I was looking at it, but it's actually a good BSB. Attack and magic and haste. I mean, this is Onion Knight right now. This is the exact same thing as Onion Knight. but it does deviate quite a bit once we get to the commands. We get 4 or 5 times single target when exploiting weakness. So that's a good ice thing, and 2 times AoE and self-defense 50%. The defense 50% is weird, but I'm not going to say it's unwelcome. It's actually pretty good. However, because of both commands are ice, it's probably just basically an Onion Knight Burst Soul Break that you're bringing to an Ice Weak fight instead of anything else. So it definitely doesn't have the same usage, but it's still good. It's still a good burst. Vanille's Missile Time. Transcendent Dream is pretty flippin' old. I have no idea what the state of healing is in Japan. Well, I guess I do have an idea. Rosa's still Rosa. There's still good USBs. I don't think much changes between now and then as far as healing is concerned. It's just the rich get richer, I guess. Rosa's USB is still the queen of all healing, and then you've got, I'm going to use this healer ability for the situation. So it's kind of like Elemental in that regard, where you're probably going to want a status blink. You're probably going to want, you know, other stuff. What did Larsa get? Did Larsa get a USB? No, Larsa didn't get anything. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Old even now, but as anyone was here, oh, and hi Don, saw, I still use Vanille's BSB all the time because I try to play without wall, and that's the only other healer BSB I have other than Ishtola's. And Ishtola without using wall is just Asylum, which I'll take Vanille's over Asylum almost any day. But I don't know how it's gonna fare 4.5 months from now, where we have not only just have a few more options, quite a few more, but you would have had much more opportunity to broaden your horizons and get more healing relics. And believe me, if I had something better than Vanille's, I'd probably be using it. And there are better things than Vanille's burst in USBs and in the burst category. They're just all I have. So I'm not going to consider this a big win on the banner. This is a gimme to people that somehow made it to this point without a Final Fantasy XIII Medica. Next we move on to the 3 legend materia. We got Noel's Gloves, which are small ice damage up. So we got ice damage up on 7 and 8. Both Sarah and Noel. That's pretty good. And interesting part here is I think these are the first plus ice damage bracers in the entire game. Would I consider Eiko BSB better than Vanille's Burst? Yes. Yeah, I would. Plus ice damage bracer is an excellent relic. And this is light armor, which is also a really nice relic. I like both of these. So anyway, the legend materials themselves are medium physical damage up when equipping swords. Like we went over before, it's good. Low chance to dual cast ice, of course. Never going to say no to a 25% chance to dual cast. And snows up to medium attack. Up to medium attack, sure. Up. Based on number of hits received from enemy, that sucks. 9 is minor ice resistance, so that sucks all around. And the 2%ers on the banner. Oh, for those who don't know the percent distribution, so they're still running at 14. They haven't upped that 14 in a very long time, obviously, since we're running at 14 right now, just as they are. But it's 10 1%ers, and then 2 2%ers. So this would be the 10th percent, and then 11, 12, 13, 14. I actually don't even know how Bar Element really works yet. Oh, unless you're just talking about minor resistance. In which case, it's just useless. Okay, so we got Noel's Death Blow. Holy crap, is this old? But useful in Sid missions. You know, I hesitate to say that. I guess 0 cast time, self-instacast 2 is always going to be good. Yeah, shit, that's always going to be good. Not only is it good for Sid missions, but it's also good for him as a complimentary piece. So, it's good. It's good, and the only reason it's been put down, and it was a dissatisfactory thing to pull off of the 2nd anniversary banner that had, you know, Reigns and Refia and Realm and stuff like that, is because it was on Noel. And he really wasn't worth using at that point. If you're pulling on this banner, then you're pulling for the chance of this. So remember that if you get this, it opens up the viability of all the other stuff that he uses, except maybe his BSB. I don't know if there's all that much reason to use this if you've got his BSB or USB. But his SSB is completely different. That will be a nice thing for him to use in a lot of situations. Not including in Trust, because remember, his Legend Materia 2 grants haste and instacast 3 at the start of the battle. That means Noel, using all this instacast crap, has the ability to generate a lot more Soul Break than most people do. Like, a lot more. This is a ton of instacast. And last up, we have Endless Blessings, which is old as hell too, but you're never going to say no to a Manga, Faithka, Heiska. It's great. It's great for submissions, and it's going to be great for Sarah for like a complimentary piece for Full Throttle and Single Throttle and, you know, all those combinations of crazy shit they're doing. So, how do we feel about this banner? Complimentary low ends. Legend Materia, we'll get 2 really good hits here, but yeah, you know what? It's 2 really good hits. I mean, it's Ice Armor. I'm going to say yes to that. This sucks. Everything about it sucks. It's on snow, which, I mean, looking at all of his things, it's all just it's a derp fest. His USB is not that great. His BSB2 is, I think, the best thing about him. But even then, it's your Heiska on an ice party. It's not like it's fulfilling a huge need. Yeah, snow sucks. But overall, I can endorse the banner for a very specific type of person. Ice, 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 ice. Commands are ice. Double cast ice. It's a nice banner. It's I'd say the banner is on par with the above average banners of the era. Nothing special, but still a strong ice banner. So I wouldn't consider this pullable, just because above average doesn't really mean much to me, unless I'm pulling for specific reasons, which would be I need Final Fantasy XIII synergy at this point in the game, or I need ice at this point in the game. If you qualify for either of those two, this banner is worth looking at. Well, Ivan, well said. Well said. But he does actually kind of stink. So Banner 2 is not as good or as pullable as the first banner. However, it does have some neat stuff on it. First off, we have Hope's USB, which is, I believe, a almost carbon copy of Braska's. Aeons of Flame and Storms. 10 single attacks. Grants summoning 30% boost and auto fiery lightning. So it's not a carbon copy. Oops. It is the next Final Fantasy XIII event. For some reason, they decided to neglect 13 for a very long time. Yeah, but it's similar. This effect right here is just a fire version of what I'm going to go over for Hope in the moment. So Hope gets a self magic and defense plus 30%, which doesn't stack with Sid Rain's BSB entry, which, I mean, who knows if you're actually like using that at this point, but think of this. Magical Holy teams are still rare, even at this point in the game. So putting together a team for Hope and Sid Rains, if you want to deal magical holy damage instead of making a physical team, those are still two of your best options for it. And this doesn't really go together all that well with Sid Rain's BSB. So what do we got? Oh, and temporarily cast... Okay, I'm just going to look at the spreadsheet because that doesn't really give enough information on it for my taste. Auto-destructive barrage. It's not a status. Right? No, it is a status. Okay. Cast Destructive Barrage every 5 seconds. For how long? 15 seconds. So it does 3 ticks of Auto-Destructive Barrage. Which is a bunch of question marks. But, oh, interesting. 5 single? It's weird for a summoner. We usually get group damage. But 5 single actually gives us a lot of hope. Hope. Because it's going to do more damage than Braska's Auto Fiery Lightning. So let's take that. So that does a 6.8. So let's try to extrapolate. Super Soul Breaks do about 25% more damage when they're single target instead of group. So 6.8 would give us a fair chunk of damage here. I mean, we're over 9 at that point. 9.4-ish. That's pretty decent. We get that 3 times. That's almost as strong as an OSB. It's not almost as taking it a bit too far. There is no summon boost for Hope. He gets magic and defense plus 30%. Instead. No, only on Braska. Then I'm not sure what you're trying to get at. Why would I add 30? Why would I add the summon boost to that multiplier when we're comparing multipliers? Yeah. If I'm going to add the summon boost to the 6.8, then I also need to add in the plus 30% magic to the eventual output of hopes, which is something that's impossible to do without knowing the statistics. Yeah, but Hope doesn't get that. He gets magic. Never mind. We're not comparing what you're talking about. Okay, so that's strong. That's a lot of single target holy magical damage. Good. Saz, I already talked about his USB. Good. I guess like the first banner, we get a third that just tramples on everything. Lightning's OSB is just... It's an OSB for a really good character. So although the OSB itself sucks, I guess I can't compare it to the first banner because this is something I don't want on a bad character. While this is something that's okay, and although it's worse than other OSBs, it still performs a role that everything else that Lightning does can't perform. So, it's still good. It's still good. While Snow's USB, I don't believe is desirable at all if you have a decked out Lightning and you don't have her OSB yet. This is actually a good pull. So next up, we got the BSBs, which is Hoped Gloves. That's nothing new about that. It's okay. You get Unholy from your USB? You do. So I think these two together work together really well. Matching resistance plus 30%, matching defense plus 30%. And his commands aren't bad. The only problem with this was that he didn't get the Unholy on those commands, and this came out during an era of the game where we were hitting neutral targets, and N element meant everything. Because if you couldn't compare to the rest of the characters in the game, they were putting out N element damage, then that changed everything. But now with elemental teams being segmented off from the other elements, there's less competition. Considerably less competition in Holy Mage category. It is a Holy Bracer. That's a good relic. And what do you got here? Alright, if there's one problem here, and if I'm gonna rag on Braska, I'm gonna rag on Hope as well, is that his first command upon entering burst mode doesn't do any damage. Oh, that's not even actually a concern. Never mind. You're okay with that, because there's no reason to use this command. Unless you're actually using it for the effects. So it's not a typical summoning mode where you use the command and then you use the second command to get the benefits. You don't give a shit, because additional 15% chance to stun the enemy. Who cares? You really are just using this for the entry, the magic and resistance buff, and the 4 single target holy attacks, which you can gladly pair up with that. So he does become an untrustable mage. Is he a powerful character with all this? Not really. He just becomes usable. Saz's BSB, attack and magic 30%, self instacast 2. That's all. I've always been a big fan of that. And here we start to piece together the jigsaw puzzle that is Saz. He gets this Legend Materia. The Legend Materia 2 we went over on the previous page, the Mega Thread. Increases duration and stat debuffs by 40%. That's always a 40%er when in the LM2 position, which is really good when you're a buffer, which Saz is. He's an extraordinary buffer. And is, as his second command, or second Legend Materia that you would likely be using if you pulled on this banner, it grants him Instacast 1 at the beginning of the battle, as well as beginning the round with full ATB. Okay. That changed from when they originally showed that to us. That is a copy of Ramses, which is excellent. I originally thought it was Instacast 1 with haste, which I wouldn't think of as being as good. Especially because his USB, which is the reason to use Saz at that point in the game, has haste on it. So him starting with full ATB in Instacast 1 is great. You want to have that on a person with Haska, which Ramza and Saz both do. Yep, he's definitely a synergist, the king synergist. He's an excellent buffer. He's an excellent buffer. However, when we think of Saz, currently, it's with his BSB, which is hybrid, but he is no longer a hybrid at this point in the game. He is a magic support. Magic defense resistance plus 30% haste status blink. This is why you use Saz at this point in the game. And if you want to Wrath Up and use this to get your Instacast 2 and then Wrath Up again and then go back to using the USB, using that 40% increase of buff duration, you can easily juggle both of them and give your party some massive buffs all by himself. You can do that. Just understand that that's a ton of buffs to a magic team, but only a 30% attack buff to a physical team who laugh at that. They don't. There are so many better ways to do that. Next up, olds. But, I mean, we saw Sarah get a version of this on the first banner. It was still good, so... Lightning's BSB2 is still good. Gilles' BSB, we know this is good. For all those Dark Mage teams out there. I think this is probably a good time to go into it, but I think Gilles loses a lot of her oomph. Not a lot. Okay, not a lot. I think a lot was before we found out that 5 and 6 star abilities weren't getting that much of an upgrade on their Soul Break generation. When I heard about that change, I was like, oh no. People like Gilles are just going to be thrown to the wayside because their strength pretty much lies in their wrath, doesn't it? Not so. It is nice that characters like Xdeath and Kuja can now start out the fight using stuff like Dark Zone and Dire Heal for strong attacks to exploit weakness and generate a lot of Soul Break gauge without the use of Wrath. But they still can't contend with a character like Gilles on the sheer ability to generate Soul Break because the Dire Heal and Dark Zone weren't buffed that much. I think they just generate a little bit more, which was a nice buff. A nice buff. They didn't go overboard, which is good. So they didn't make her irrelevant. So her burst Soul Break is still good. However, we do find out in this event that she gets no further development. She really is just a BSB bot with a good super. She still does have the attack and magic minus 50% super. So that's fine. Just a little weird to see that on this banner. Remember, in the first banner, we have Noel and Sarah, super Soul Breaks for characters that are strongly featured on the banner. The two best relics on the banner, Noel and Sarah, USBs. Second banner, we have Hope and Saz. And then we have Saz and Gilles? It's a little banner discordance. After Gilles' BSB, we move into the Legend Materia. We have Hope's Guise, which is 17. I guess it's holy, isn't it? Yeah, small holy damage up. Light armor, I'm guessing. Start battle with unholy. Good. Saz's Coat. Start battle with haste and instacast 1. Very good. Lightning. Low chance to double cast lightning and double cast lightning damage abilities. Very good. Especially for Lightning, who's a goddess. It's weird that this banner is, like, so strong in the Legend Materia category, while every other... Well, this is still fine. My brain wants to tell me that her OSB is bad, because it is compared to other OSBs, but... Again, since this is my first time doing this, this is a really good time to go into OSBs and how OSBs and their role in the game hasn't degraded at all. When they first came out, they weren't all that good because they were just simply damage, and there were other ways to do that, and the battles didn't require stuff like this. However, as time has gone on, OSB's value hasn't decreased, while stuff like BSBs have. OSBs are sitting there in the corner saying, yeah, you use me to finish the fight or to push phase. 2 months later, yeah, you use me to finish the fight or to push a phase. 6 months later, yeah, you use me to finish the fight or to push a phase, and nobody has encroached on their ability to do that. So, while power creep has hit a lot of other things in the game, OSBs have stayed constant. So they're actually a valuable thing to have as further development. I guess that's the key in the difference between then and where Japan is now, is we're focusing more on further development instead of expansion of development. And what I mean by that is single character. You want this on Lightning because you already have a really good Lightning, and it makes her much better because there's rewards to be gained from fights that you can end quickly. So damage per second is a thing, and finishing quickly is a thing, and having good finishers is a thing. While back in the day, finishing quickly wasn't a thing, so you were more happy to get a Burst Soul Break, which was sustained damage and was useful 90% of the time, versus an OSB, which was simple one strike bursts and useful, 5-10% of the time. Anyway, sorry for that long explanation for that, but it needed to be done. OSBs are, it's good that OSBs are showing up on these banners. So next up we have the Super Soul Break section, and it's good that Sass's party attack 50% and Magic Blink 1 shows up here. Because this runs counter to what I said earlier. Because you have his USB and you have his BSB, and that's how it's BSB. You can actually create an okay. He still is a much better magic buffer than he is an attack, because he's granting haste with this, haste and status blink. That's a really valuable thing to add to a mage party, and you don't want to bother with using this in a physical party. While this doesn't grant haste. And this doesn't grant haste. So it means you've got to find a source of that elsewhere, and that just means he's not as strong as doing that attack as he is magic. That's all. But he can be an option if you've got another form of haste, and that's nice. And lastly, we have a strange inclusion on the banner. Geo's Super Soul Break is really good. The attack of magic minus 50% status is always strong. It doesn't stop being strong. Even with the inclusion of Moat Dungeons and Magicite Dungeons. Or, no, not Moat. I don't think the debuff resistance is increased in Moat Dungeons, just Magicite. It's still just always going to be strong. And with more triple breaks being added to the game, it stacks with more things. So it's nice. It's just weird to see on the banner. Always prefer that things stay thematic, which means we would want a Hope Super. So let's see if we can reason out why they didn't add a Hope Super onto the banner and use Geo instead. And there we have it. Last resort. 8 single attacks. Holy damage. That's it. That would be completely and utterly unacceptable to add on a banner at this point in the power creep. While this is still a good super, that's hot freaking garbage. There you go. So that leads us to the end of this. And general impression. I mean, when this banner gets to us, I'll obviously run into a deeper dive. And I guess I made this longer than I wanted to. I'm going to try. I always say that. I want to make this more streamlined, because there's no reason for me to dive this deep into it. So I'm just going to give you a summary. And it is... Hold on one second. Are you not doing that anymore? Oh, I'm not running the counter. Hold on. I've made a lot of mistakes with my English in this stream, so I lose. Okay. Second banner's not worth pulling on. There are very few situations in which you would pull on this, and they're all dependent on having specific, very specific relics, and so specific that there's no way I can actually suggest this banner at the moment, and it will have to be reevaluated because it really depends on having those specific relics. While this one's easier, you can keep this in the back of your mind, and it's not going to occupy a lot of room. Do I need the Final Fantasy XIII synergy? Do I need ice? There you go. Pull on banner 1. It's good for that. Very good for that. Better probably than any other banner in the game for that. Even though overall power level, it's not. It's still powerful for certain roles. There you go. That was easy enough. And the reason why I can't really talk about this banner is because we're going to be having a festival in between now and then, and Japan did have Lightning's USB on the festival, so you may or may not have the stuff that it takes to make this banner good. Because let's face it, Lightning's USB is not on this banner, but every other piece of Lightning's strong puzzle is. Did I see the Sarah USB and BSP2 and LMR? Yes, I did. That was on banner 1. And I'm on banner 2 now, which means I had already went over it. I feel like I'm going to be set on ice for a while. Because I have ETA, who, bless her soul, doesn't age. That 6-hit command is still nuts. I still like it. Yeah, it's good. It's not a super banner. It's not. I'm not gonna suggest people go out and like search for and pull for the banner, but it serves a purpose. It serves a purpose. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's a lot of viewers. I hope they like Final Fantasy and talking. Yeah, so that's how I feel about that banner. Strong comeback? I don't know about that. She's just being made relevant. Thank you. Right when I got to the end of the analysis of this banners. Thank goodness, right? It's pretty insufferable. I guess what I could do next, I planned on doing anyway. Final Fantasy Talking. That's the name of the game. I should just try to get Twitch to it. Add in a game called Final Fantasy Talking, because that's what we do. I'm going to do some torment farming.